Hello students, we will continue with the chapter that is how do organisms reproduce. Today we will discuss about the structure of the ovule. Ovules, they are found inside the ovary, and the ovules, they have an embryo sac. That embryo sac has the egg apparatus, it has the secondary nuclei, and it has 3 antipodals. Now what is egg apparatus? Egg apparatus consists of an egg which is a female gamete and which has 2 synergies. So these 2 synergies along with the egg forms the egg apparatus. In the middle there are 2 nuclei. The 2 nuclei, they fuse together to form a secondary nucleus, and there are 3 antipodals. And in the ovule there is a small opening which is called as the micropyle, through which the pollen tube enters in the ovule. So now the male and the female gamete fuse in the embryo sac of the ovule. The fusion requires the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of the flower. So for the formation of seeds, 2 steps are necessary, that is pollination and fertilization. But fertilization, that is the fusion of the male gamete and the female gamete. Okay, and the female gamete is the egg which is present in the ovule of the ovary. So the pollen grains which contains the male gametes, in the pollen grains, the nucleus of the pollen grains divides to form 2 male gametes. So this pollen grains which contains 2 male gametes has to reach to the pistil of the flower or the stigma of the flower. So that happens by the process of pollination. Pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from the anther of the flower to the stigma of the same or the another flower. And this takes place through various agencies like wind, water, insects, etc. Pollination is followed by fertilization. When the pollen grain fall on the receptor stigma, they absorb water and minerals from the stigma and germinate to produce pollen tube. The pollen tube grows through the style and reaches the ovary. And meanwhile, the pollen grain nucleus divides into 2 male gametes, and after reaching the ovary, pollen tube enters the ovule through micropyle and pierces the egg apparatus at the end of the embryo sac. There the tip of the pollen tube bursts open and male gametes come out. One of the male gamete fuses with the egg and it forms zygote, and this is called as fertilization. Now this zygote, it will divide, it will redivide, and it will form a mass of cells. Then after some time these cells, they differentiate and they form the embryo. The zygote later on grows into the embryo. The other male gamete fuses with the binucleate secondary nucleus and it produces triploid primary endosperm nucleus, and this is called as triple fusion. The primary endosperm nucleus forms a nutritive tissue which is called as the endosperm, and the function of the endosperm is to nourish the developing embryo. Now this is also called as double fertilization. Why double fertilization? Because one of the male gamete fuses with the egg and it forms the zygote, and another, it fuses with the secondary nucleus. Okay, so that is why it is called as the double fertilization. Now we will discuss about seed. Seed can be defined as a reproductive unit which grows into a new plant in suitable conditions. Okay, now what does this seed contains? Seed contains embryo and cotyledons having stored food for its development. The students, the ovary, okay, what is seed? The seed is actually the ovule which is present in the ovary. So this ovary, it forms the fruit, and what is present in the fruit? Seeds are present, and here what is present inside the ovary? Ovules are present, and what is present inside the ovule? A baby plant is present, an embryo is present, and what is present inside the seed? Inside the seed also a small plant is present. So I mean to say the ovary forms the fruit ovules form the seeds, and inside this ovule the fertilization process has taken place. So inside the ovule a embryo or a small baby plant is present. Okay, so the seed that is covered with the seed coat testa that is formed from the wall of the ovule. So this seed is what actually it is the ovule. Now the part of the baby plant which develops into shoot is called plumule, and the part which develops into root is called as radicle. Now one more thing is there, that in the seed, okay, there is the outer covering is the testa. In all the seeds there is a very small hole which is actually the micropyle of the ovule, and the seed absorb water through this micropyle only. Now when this seed, inside the seed what is present, you will see that inside the seed a small baby plant is present or a small embryo is present, okay, which will have two parts, the plumule and the radicle. The plumule will grow after germination, the plumule will grow into a shoot and the radicle will grow into a root. Okay, and now since this baby plant, it is a living organism, and you know the living organism needs food, they need nutrition, so that nutrition is provided by the cotyledons. Now children, seeds are of two types, one is monocot seed and another is dicot seed. Now in case of dicot seed, you can see here the picture. In case of dicot seed, that is the bean seed, here there are two cotyledons. Now if you will see, if you soak the bean seed, okay, and after some time if you will open it, or if you open the bean seed, it will split into two parts. So there are two cotyledons. Okay, now these two cotyledons, it provides nourishment to the embryo. And in monocot seed there is only one cotyledon. Here if you try to split the seed into two, for example maize, corn, if you will soak it and after some 2 or 3 days if you will try to split into two, it will not split into two. So it consists of only one cotyledon. Okay students, so students, with this I finish chapter how do organisms reproduce. Students, pages from 137 to 139, please read on your own. Pages 137 to 139 of your NCERT book, just read it, and if you have any doubt, please you can clarify your doubts by sending message to the personal WhatsApp number. Okay, and so with this I finish how do organisms reproduce, and next we will start with the heredity and variations. Heredity and variation is a little bit difficult chapter, but before starting with that chapter I would like to explain you what is mitosis and what is meiosis. So in the next class we will discuss about mitosis and meiosis, and then we will start with heredity and variations. Now students, you can see the video on respiratory system. Thank you.
Scientific biology. In this video we will study about the human respiratory system. Human respiratory system is one of the most vital organ system of the body that support pulmonary ventilation, external and internal respiration, olfaction and phonation. We breathe about 16,000 to 24,000 times a day with exchange of about 11,000 liters of air with the atmosphere. In this process, the oxygen of the atmospheric air is delivered to the human body, which is then utilized by the tissue, and the carbon dioxide which is produced by the human body is exported to the lungs. In this video, we will first talk about the brief anatomy and physiology of the respiratory system. Then we will discuss how the gases transportation occurs. And later we will talk about how the respiratory regulation occurs in the human body. So first, coming to the anatomy and physiology of the respiratory system. The human respiratory system has two parts, the upper respiratory system and the lower respiratory system. The upper respiratory system consists nasal cavity, pharynx, and larynx. Air entering the nasal cavity flows through the passage created by the superior, middle, and inferior nasal conchae. Frontal, maxilla, nasal, ethmoid, and vomer are the 5 bones of the nasal cavity that form a framework that support the nose. The pharynx is a musculo-membranous tube that functions as a part of alimentary canal and as an airway in the upper respiratory system. Pharynx consists of 3 regions, and they are nasopharynx, oropharynx, and laryngopharynx. The larynx is an organ of complex structure that serves as a dual function, as an air canal to the lung and as the organ of phonation. The skeletal framework of the larynx consists of cartilages connected by the membranes. The lower respiratory system consists trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, and lungs. The trachea extends from the larynx to the upper border of the T5 vertebra, where it branches to form bronchi. The trachea is supported by a series of C-shaped cartilaginous rings that allow the trachea to change shape to accommodate masses of the food passes through the esophagus. The bronchi are the air passage into the lung that begins at the end of the trachea. There are 2 bronchi, one for each lung. The bronchi divide and redivide to form a bronchioles. There are 2 lungs in the human body, which are located inside the thoracic cage. The right lung is bigger than the left. The right lung has 3 lobes and the left has 2. There are hundreds of millions of alveoli exist inside each lung. These alveoli are the air sacs surrounded by the network of blood vessels that provide space for gaseous exchange. Now let's see how the gases transportation take place in our body. During normal inhalation, air containing oxygen passes through the nose and mouth to the lungs. During normal exhalation, air containing carbon dioxide and other waste passes out the same path. This process of moving air in and out of the lung is called pulmonary ventilation or breathing. During normal inhalation, the diaphragm and the external costal muscles contract and a rib cage elevate. As a result, air rushes in. But during the normal exhalation, the muscle relax, so air is expelled out. Inside the lungs, oxygen from the air is exchanged for the waste carbon dioxide from the bloodstream. This process takes place in alveoli. Oxygen from inhaled air diffuses from the alveoli into the pulmonary capillaries, and the carbon dioxide from oxygen-depleted blood diffuses from the capillaries into the alveoli. Now the bloodstream delivers oxygen to cells and remove the carbon dioxide through the process of internal respiration. In the lungs, oxygen is absorbed into the blood by RBC containing hemoglobin. Oxygen binds to this molecule. The oxygenated blood then moves through the vasculature. Within the body tissue, the RBC release oxygen, which then diffuses through the capillary wall into the tissue. Meanwhile, the waste carbon dioxide diffuses into the bloodstream, where it is carried inside the RBC and plasma. Now, the deoxygenated blood travels through vasculature and back to the lungs, where carbon dioxide is expelled out from the body. Now let's see how breathing is regulated by our brain. Respiration is an involuntary function. Nerve impulse is transmitted by the pons and the medulla oblongata to the respiratory center. The rate of normal breathing is 12 to 15 breaths per minute. The body adjusts the rate and depth of the normal breathing in response to metabolic needs. When the body uses more oxygen, sensor in the blood called chemoreceptor sends the signals to the brain. So the rate of breathing increases. Action including talking, sneezing, and coughing can also alter breathing pattern for the short period of time.